And I also found that you beat Raonic, which is crazy, right?
I beat him twice, actually. I beat Raonic, yeah. I beat him once in the warm-up tournament before Australian Open Juniors. I think it was Traralgon, I think it was, somewhere like that. And I beat him also on the grass in Roehampton, Grade 1 Juniors. I was very fortunate for the LTA to have funding up until the age of like 20, 21. But then after that, it was kind of like, if you weren't kind of performing that well, you kind of got dropped with the funding, and then you were kind of on your own. But when I was 21, I had knee surgery on my cartilage. So I was pretty much out of tennis for a year and a half. Then I had 3 really bad injuries in a row. So I didn't think I was going to get back on the court at one stage, because there seemed to be one injury after another. And it wasn't since after then I had my best ranking. I was basically about 600 at the time, ATP, when I had knee surgery. Kind of had to start again from scratch, basically. I had no ranking. So I was basically watching. I was still training at the LTA Federation with the base at Roehampton, doing a lot of rehab, etc. But I wasn't playing any tennis for a year and a half. And then as soon as I got back straight into it, I had my best results, really. I won a couple of futures that year, made a few semis, a lot of quarterfinals. So that's when my ranking really shot up to where it got to. But then after that, a few years after that, it's kind of tough really to fund it, really. I was kind of having to take time out of playing the full schedule, and then having to do coaching weeks to try and fund my tournament. So basically I was only playing like a half a schedule, really, compared to all these like all these other guys. They had a full-on schedule with proper training weeks and then tournament blocks.
So that was when you were sort of with your career high. So I looked, you were 406 was your career high,
so
right?
406 basically. Yes, that's my career high. Yeah. And
that was on half a schedule, you were saying?
Pretty much, not quite a full schedule then, but because I was still having to fund quite a lot of tournaments myself, which is obviously take time away from the tour to actually earn money to actually go back on and play tournaments, which was difficult at times, because you couldn't get into any sort of rhythm, and I couldn't get any really solid practice before tournaments. So I was kind of hitting with players that weren't really a good standard. Like I did a lot of work at a private school, coaching a lot of beginners, and then obviously I do a couple of blocks there, like do 2 to 3 weeks coaching, and then I'd use that money to go straight away into tournaments where I didn't have any proper preparation, really. So so that's probably why I say I didn't get as high as I could have. I thought I could have got a bit higher.
Did the funding stop after the injury, or got less or something, and then you got the career high, or how did that work?
A little bit less. So I was still getting a little bit of funding when I was injured. And then after that, didn't get too much after that. No, because it's kind of if you weren't at a really high standard like of ATP, like your ranking, you had to be around about 250 in the world ATP by the time you were late teens, early 20s, and obviously at that time there weren't a lot of players around that age that got to that sort of ranking criteria. So that was when the LTA made a little bit of a decision to say, okay, you haven't quite met the criteria, so we're not going to give you as much funding now. So that was when I kind of had to go into coaching, and then kind of had to use that money into putting towards tournaments, etc. But that was when it was difficult, really.
So I read that you were then almost like for 2 years battling with injury. Is that right?
About a year and a half. Yeah, about a year and a half. So I had knee surgery, then I had kind of like a stress fracture in my shin. Because it wasn't quite, even though I was doing a lot of rehab, it wasn't implicating the amount of force you were doing on the tennis court. So then I had a little bit of a stress fracture. Then I was ready to compete, and then in training I badly twisted my ankle. So that was the third injury, pretty much all back to back in a row, which knocked me right back. But then as soon as after that, as soon as when I got the green light to go ahead, that was when I made up some progress there, definitely, right from the first tournament coming back.
So so that's interesting. So how would you describe your mindset then? Like, was it throughout the injury? Because then, I mean, that sounds tough. But then, what
Yeah.
do you think? Like, first of all, how was the time in the injury, and then how did you manage to turn that into the positive energy to get you to that career high?
Well, just being around other players, because when I was doing my rehab stuff, obviously I was on crutches for a fair few months, not being able to put any weight down through my legs. So I was actually sitting behind the court, actually watching the other guys train, actually just watching them practice, thinking, oh God, I wish I could be out there. Because I didn't have anything else to do, you see. I was still living at the tennis centre at Roehampton. I was on site.
Yeah.
So I was just watching the tennis in between my rehab. So I was like fully ready by the time I got back on, because I missed it that much. I was a year and a half out.
Yeah.
As soon as I got back, I was so hungry to play and so determined to get back on the court. That was when I remember my first tournament, I had a wild card into a tier 1 British tour. I think it was down in Devon somewhere, or Exeter. Yeah, Exeter, the University of Exeter. And I remember I won that tournament straight away. Beat a pretty good player in the final. And then just by winning that tournament, gained me entry into a 15K futures with a wild card the next week. And I beat a couple of high-ranked players, 300 in the world, and I made semis of that tournament. So straight from the first 2 tournaments, I already made very good progress. I was already high on confidence, going straight into it. So that helped me out a lot. I had such a fast start back from injury, straight into tournaments, really gained me confidence straight away. That's such a long time out. I mean, some players will be like, okay, I don't want to do it anymore. They kind of just drift away from the sport and not really want to do it anymore themselves. But because I was still around it, I think, and still watching everyone train, and I wanted to still be involved. And I knew, well, as soon as I didn't play, I learned how much I missed it. Was why when I got back on the court, I wanted to was fully 100% every training, every match, was straight back on it again.
So what do you think the biggest difference would have been between like a futures tournament, playing on challenger tournaments, and like Grand Slam qualies?
Yeah, so I'd say Grand Slam players, they don't give away too many cheap points. You basically got to earn every point, and they're so positive in their mindset. They're like on it right from the start, like every point, even if they just played a bad point. If they miss like a smash on top of the net, they'll take a bit more time to recover, and then the next point it'll be like fully erased. They go again, it's like they just push the reset button, and they go straight from scratch again. They erase it, and then back to the next point after that. So it's very, very tough. And yeah, like I say, like they're so clinical with when they do get chances, especially in Grand Slam qualies. They create chances, but when they do get those chances, they pretty much take them most of the time. When the stats are showing those, and the same for challengers, really. I mean, you can get some great players playing challengers. The same, they're so on it in the points, and every match you've really got to earn the points you're winning, really, and they don't give away too many cheap. That's the difference from futures to challengers. You see, in futures you can still get away with not playing your best tennis. Sometimes in futures, just scraping through the wins and getting a few too many cheap points from your opponent. But as you go up the levels in challenges, you don't get those many cheap points as you would in futures. You've got to try and earn those points a bit more. So that's kind of like the levels, really, how it differentiates and that.
Yeah, that's interesting. So so now you coach, right? Is that something you would try to teach the juniors and stuff? Is that like the main message you would try and come across?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, just be positive, because I'm quite a positive person anyway, so I never really show that much emotion on the court. Not too much negativity anyway, so sometimes that frustrates your opponent. So yeah, just when the juniors I'm coaching, it's just, if you do happen to play a bad point, it's not the end of the world. You've got time to get that back, so there's always another point to recover from it. Just try and let it go and move on. There's no point letting that bother you, because that can affect your next couple of points of the game. Like, you've seen some matches nowadays, they go down to like 1 or 2 points here and there. So something bad happens, just try and get it out of your mind. Don't think about it and move on from it. Yeah. Don't let it bother you, affect you. Definitely, yeah, I know. learned a huge amount. Like I met my other half, Becky. Yeah, she's in tennis as well, so we met through tennis. And I first got started into tennis from my brother. So even from my family, it was always brought up with tennis, really. And oh yeah, you learn a huge deal from tennis. Not only just hitting the balls back and forth and that, you learn so much more about yourself, socializing with other people, time management. I'm going to say you've got to be able to travel, planning. I'm very good at planning now. Organization. I mean, all coming from tennis, like you can use outside of tennis in the normal world today, in normal day and age today. So it's not just hitting balls. You learn a great deal about yourself and about life in general, really. So it's all positive coming from tennis.